All right, so here's our environment, and let's continue to break this up. As I mentioned before, like you'll have your initial gray box, something like this, and then these will all eventually go in their own files anyway, right? So we know where these go. So I'm just going to shift them off so we're more and more just kind of not obstructing the view of the actual model as well. So let's continue to clean as we go. So let's grab these two cubes, and just throw them in railings because these eventually going to get replaced. Let's hide these guys. And again, as you're modifying these, you're going to see that, like these modifications, things are going to need to get tweaked. Like, for example, like this is way too small, right? Like this box here. And so, um, we'll go ahead and this cube that represents the floor here, like we can shift this down or just eventually delete it. Same thing with this floor, we'll move it down even more. Just sort of modifying this. We'll grab this house part, tab, edit mode. Again, I'm in X-ray mode, right? That's this little box here. That way I can select all of my verts. I'm gonna move it down even more. And remember, the reason why this texture isn't stretching is because I have these on, right? So back to object mode, play with the size of this. And again, you're always going to be constantly tweaking unless you have the exact dimensions, right? Like you're modeling something from an architectural render. Let's get this guy out here. And honestly, it's all right to exaggerate because the thing is you need to give your character a good amount of space to move around, right? So here's our character. Let's see if we could find that, this thing. Let's bring this down. Let's bring this down in the center here. You could, again, always sort of move these two pillars here. I could shift select both, tab, edit mode, bring the tops down, you know. And again, this is a good amount of space because you don't want your character getting caught in the doorway, right? Tab, edit mode. Just keep tweaking and, again, working on your portfolio. So let's go ahead and looks like we need one more here. So let's select this, go to edit mode. I might just pull this all the way down for now, just to cover that corner. And then I can grab this, duplicate this, and just place it there. So Shift D, escape, and just looks like it goes about halfway. So something like this. And again, if you have stuff obstructing your view, these ladders can go on their own layer. So these two cylinders, I'll just kind of drag them down here so they're off. Make sure we rename them ladder. Throw these in the ladder collection. All right, so we're slowly getting there. So the next thing I need to do is same thing as before. Tab, edit mode. I need to add a cut here so we could start working on the stone texture, right? So I could really select any of these edges, right? These two edges here. So I'm gonna hit 2, and I'm gonna select both of these edges on this side. And actually, let's just go ahead and select this and isolate it. Shift H, tab, edit mode, and then select this edge here at the bottom, and then this one here, so that we get a nice clean cut all the way around. And then Command R, and then I'm just gonna click in there. And then tab object mode, Alt H to bring everything back, and just kind of look at where that cut is, right? So if I select this now and go back into edit mode, you can see my cut is a little off. So I'm gonna hit S and then Y, and I'm gonna S and Z, and I'm gonna scale that in, and you can see it straighten out that edge, and I'm just gonna bring it down so that it sits right. The cut is behind that piece here. All right, so let's go ahead and create another material. So still in edit mode, right? So tab edit mode. We're going to select these two front faces here where we're going to put the stone material. Okay. And go over to material mode, and I'm going to create a new material here, and I'm going to assign that, and I'm going to call this stone. So new material, and then stone underscore MTRL. And let's go and see if we could find a stone texture on the site. And then let's take a look at how we can modify that texture using Photopea. All right, so here we are on our polyhaven.com textures, and I just clicked on the rock in the right-hand side here, and I'm just going to scroll down and see if I could find something. This would look nice, but it doesn't necessarily match our reference. Let me bring up our reference again. All right, so here's our reference, and it looks like it's like it looks more like something like this, right? Where there's like a space and we have these cobblestones. And we can go online and find something else that matches it a little bit better. This one kind of matches, and it's got the spacing, but it's got this brown area. So this might be what we go to. This one looks good, but again, it's so find one that you like. I would say for the sake of this tutorial or this lesson, just go with the one that I pick. So what I'm thinking is maybe we'll select this one because it matches the most, and we'll modify it in Photopea. We'll modify the texture in Photopea. So, well, this one actually seems more, yeah, like a little bit newer. This seems very aged and falling apart. Okay, so let's click on this rock wall, and we'll modify this texture inside of Photopea. So let's download it, and I'm going to save it in that same textures folder. And then once it finishes, I'm going to go into that textures folder, and I'm going to go ahead and just double click it on my Mac. You could probably right click, unzip it, and then let's open this up. So it looks like they placed it on a Blender file. So this is our texture here. Actually, we could even almost use this one that came with it. But for now, let's just take a look at how we can modify this ourselves. So I'm going to, let's see if we could do a copy and then jump into Photopea and then do File, New. And actually, I think we could just drag it in. Let's go ahead and select that and then grab it and just see if we could just drop it in here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it brought it in, but let's see if we could just drag it into the up in the right-hand corner here. Like up into the bar here. Yeah, so if we drop it on the bar, I think it creates a new texture. There we go. Okay, so that's our texture. Now, if we look at this, it's all gray. There isn't really any of this brown grout. So there's a couple ways we can do this. We can hit, I think it's Control Shift or Command Shift U or I. Oh yeah, it's Command Shift U. Or let me undo that. You can go up here to the top and do Image, and then Adjustments, and then you can do Desaturate or Hue and Saturation, and that's one way of doing it. So let's do this again. So Filter or Image, Adjustments. Let's see. Here's Command U is Hue and Saturation. There's Color Balance. And here, Desaturate, Command Shift U. And then what we do is we do Filter and then, Image and then Adjustments. And we can do like a color balance here. Or we could do, let's see. I think Hue and Saturation is good because what you do is you can play with these saturation levels and especially the lightness and darkness this way. Another thing we could do is, let's see. Play with our levels. And by adjusting this, you can go either darker or lighter. And then as you bring this into the lighter range and you play with this, you can start to get a little bit more of those values. So it really distinguishes between the light and the dark areas of the rock. So something like that. And then one more thing to get a little bit more gray in here is, actually, I don't know why I kind of made all these layers. The hotkeys are a little different inside of here versus in regular Photoshop. But I mean, for a free tool, this is incredible. All right, so my little photo P plug there. I can make a new layer on top and then just select like a grayish blue. So we'll grab our blue here and then just kind of go into more of a grayish blue, something that looks a little like this, and a little bit more than that. And if I hit Command or Control backspace, let's see, or Shift backspace, Alt backspace, yeah, there we go. Actually, we want to make a new layer. Come on, undo. A new layer, and then hit Alt backspace or Option backspace on a Mac. And then we could multiply this on top. And then we're getting a little bit more of those values. And then I just kind of bring this opacity down a little bit. So I just want to tint a little bit of that tinted in there. So now we're getting something that's a little bit closer. I mean, this has a lot more surface information than these. Like you can see, these are a flat rock. This is more of a rounded. And that's one way of doing it. Now, I want to show you another way that's a bit more complicated. It takes a little bit more cleanup. And that's just finding an image of what you're looking for that might match a little bit closer. So I typed in gray wall stone texture, and I found this link online that's from like the Home Depot's website, and I clicked on it, and I just right-clicked and I saved the image. Now, the problem with these types of images is they're not already tiled. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a second. Now, this one might be a little bit, but let's take a look. I'm going to apply this to a plane inside of Blender to show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here we are in Blender. I'm going to go to object mode here, and I'm going to create a plane. So Shift A, mesh plane, right? And let's move it over here. I'm going to hit S to scale it up so we could really see this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply that stone material. And then under base color, I'm going to go to image texture here. And then just open up the, on desktop, let's go to our environment alias. And let's see. Oh, I think I saved it on desktop in its own folder, right? Called textures. Yeah, so this is that gray wall stone texture. I'm gonna hit open image. So if I go in here and I go to UV editing, right? And I scale up my UVs, right? So this is the UV, and I hit S to scale. Notice that that image has edges. So this causes a problem for us because we want to make it tiled so that we can, just like we did with the wood, we could apply it to both and it won't look weird. We could kind of mess with it and squish it in here, like, you know, like see how in here, if I go to object mode, because it's using the same material that we had before. Let me zoom in here for a bit. I could go into these faces and sort of tweak it a little bit, but then I'm just sort of, you know, let me do the planar, the mapping technique that I showed you before, where I hit U and then I go to project from view. I could go in here and just sort of tweak each one of these and try to get them to fit. And that might look okay, but we're definitely going to have some issues, right? It's better if we can really create a truly tiled texture. And that takes a bit of work. But like you can see here, see how it's kind of stretched. And then if I want to tweak it anything more than that, then like, you know, I want to make it a little bit smaller, I get that seam. So what do we do? So let's open up this texture that we just saved off in the Photo P. All right, so I opened this up in Photo P. And let's take this step by step, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of zoom in here. The first way to get it so that it's truly tiled, and we're going to have to clean up the inside, is that we do an offset. So let's go to Filter, and then do Other, and then Offset here. And we want to do it, we want to offset it by 1/2 on the, essentially the X and Y axis of 1/2 of whatever the texture is. So 1/2 of 512 is 256. So let's type 256 here. I'm gonna hit Tab, and then 256 here. Now what I want to show you, and again, you're gonna see a clear seam here, but what you'll notice is these edges line up. So let's do a file here, and then let's do a save as, let's see, or export rather, export as. And this time we'll just do it as a PNG, and then that looks fine. And I'll, the width of this should be, oh, you know what? Our texture here is not, it's 600 by 600. So let's try this again. So filter, and then let's undo that. Sorry, I thought I was playing with a 512 by 512. It's actually 600 by 600 because I opened it right from the website. So let's do 300 by 300. Now you can see it's in the center here. So what I want to do is you're going to see a clear cross seam, but the insides are a little off, right? And and this is a very tough thing to do. So we're going to actually kind of tweak this a lot to kind of get it to where we need it to be. But I picked a tough one purposely. So this is a PNG gray wall stone. I'm going to save it, and I'll just leave it in the same texture in the textures folder there. I'm going to hit save, and let's go back to Blender and see how it looks. All right, here we are back in Blender, and let's go to our layout here, and I'm going to just go ahead and hit Option H to bring that back. And I'm going to select this same object here, and under materials, I'm going to change this from this to, I'm going to click this little folder here, and then let's select the PNG instead this time. And let's see. So what we have here is our, let's see, is that the right one? Gray wall, stone texture PNG. Yeah. So what we have is the cross here, and then this is all the tiling is happening around the edges. So for example, like actually let's rotate it this way. I think that's the way the texture is displaying. So if we jump back into look at our photo P, notice that this block is going into this edge here, right? So that's going into here. So this is our center point, and believe it or not, the outside edges are tiling. So let's fix this up so that you can see how our outside edges are tiling, right? So we go to image size here just to look at our size. Let's see, canvas size. You can see it's 600 pixels by 600. So how do we get this to start to blend? Well, for now, I want to focus really just on a couple tools to show you. And again, I'm holding Option or Alt to zoom in and then spacebar to pan around. So this can get a little frustrating. You might have to do a separate photo P tutorial, or it might have to go, if you're really struggling, let me know and I'll make a separate one. But at the top, there's your move, there's your wand. This one here, where it shows your spot healing, it's the J key. So if I hit J here on my keyboard, it sort of, or Shift J will cycle through them. Yeah, Shift J cycles through them. So what we have here is, for example, this spot healing brush tool. Let's start with that one. This one, if you click, I'll select the layer first, sorry. If I click and I draw on top of this, it'll do its best to heal or blend between anywhere where there's a line. So I generally go in through here first and I try to hit all of the edges like this. And this generally does a pretty good job of getting rid of a lot of this stuff, right? So if I go in here, and let's see, there's a seam here, and inside of here, let's go through this, just kind of paint in here. And this guy too. And you're missing these cracks, right? So we'll talk about fixing that next. And then I go to save it again. So File, Export as PNG, Save. And then I want to just write over that same gray wall PNG that we had before. And I'll replace that. And back in Blender, you could see just by doing that, it already got rid of much of the same lines that we had before. And really, I should have saved it off as a second version. But we still have stuff like this, right? So how do we fix that, right? Well, let's go back into Photo P and I'll show you this other tool that I use. So what you can do is they have these like crevices that go around it, right? And so this gets a little tricky. And this is where you use your second brush, which is the healing brush tool. And then it says Alt, and then it has this if you're using a tablet. If you click on the Alt here, what it'll do is if you hold Option or Alt on your keyboard, let's make sure our layer is selected. I can actually copy this and just sort of create a crack that goes all the way across. So something like this, right? And then same thing here, right? Maybe I want to break this up a little bit more. And then I can grab this guy and just kind of go this way a little bit. And even though that doesn't look perfect, we still have our spot healing brush tool that can go in and correct that. Same thing with this. Say I want to just kind of clean this up, make a bigger gap there, right? Then I go back in, right? So this is my healing brush. This is my spot healing. And I could just expand this up by hitting the brackets and just sort of paint inside of here. Something like that. Actually, that might be too big. Let's undo that. You just kind of go across this surface. Go across this. Clean up these guys a little bit because it was looking pretty, the uniform with all those little dots. Same thing here, just kind of paint in between here. And then I'll show you the patch tool in a second. But I want to grab this, click on that, and just create a little ridge that goes all the way down here. Kind of got to be careful. If you hit that edge, it'll get rid of it. See how it kind of, so let me zoom in there. There we go. And I mean, it looks a little clouded. So what do I do if I want to add a little bit more texture, right? Like I want to get this. That's where you go in there and use your patch tool. And with the patch tool, you can left click and drag out like a little marquee, and you can move this up. It'll start to take some of the texture information from wherever you're grabbing it, and it'll blend it in there. So like say you want to really kind of push this down a little bit. But as long as we don't have any major seams, like in here, this could really use some just a little bit of texture inside that gravel area. Because like you wouldn't really find a weird white spot like that. So let me zoom out a little bit. Actually, make sure this is locked in there. And then let's save this again. So save, or export rather, PNG. Same thing as before. Save. Replace that. And now, if we go back into Blender, you could see it looks pretty good. The only difference is we have some color stuff. And sometimes you do have to like go back in and make sure that you select your PNG again so it updates. But like, for example, with this little pink area, I might even just paint that out because it looks kind of weird. But that's a lot better than what we had. And even if I go in here now and, Shift H to hide that, right? And let's hit F to, looks like they're not, both of them are not using the same material for some reason right now. Let's make sure they're both using stone material. Oh, I think it's the UVs. It's the UV size. But now if we go to UV editing and let's see. I scale this up. Yeah, you could see that is right. Yeah, so that now I get a little bit nicer of a tile texture. Same thing here. Scale that up a little bit. And I can move it around too to give it some variation, right? So that they're not both looking at the same thing, right? But I want them to be about the same size. So, let's select both of these. And then unwrap, project from view. And then now I can just kind of scale them both up. And because they're tiled in different areas, you could see something like that. So now when I go to layout, Alt H, then hide it, you can see those are there. And it'll start to look more realistic as you build out your level, right? Or, if we want to go cartoony, we just got to remove a lot of the surface information and make it, you could also make cartoony textures. But yeah, that looks good. So what I would suggest at this point is, what I'm going to have you guys do as your assignment is, and let me bring up PureRef, is really just finish let's see, the parts that I know you guys can do are, let's see, this house, this, and because now that you know how to model out the walls, you have the wood texture, you could pretty much just do the same thing here where you apply that same wood planks material. Let's see. Here, wood planks, and you could unwrap this up here. You could start to, again, as long as you have option, this on, right? These two on, you could go in here, select this face, right? And then inset it, so you just push I, scale that in. X, delete that face. You already have one going on here, right? You could start building out the frame. Same thing here, tab, object mode, select this, tab, edit mode, select this face up here, eye, grab your scale tool. You might have to bring this whole thing up. Looks like I didn't. X, delete face. Build out that part too. Let me save mine. And it's just a lot of reusing, right? So a lot of reusing these same pieces, grab this post here, Shift D, escape, bring it down, hit S, scale it down, Shift D. So what I'm saying is I want you to focus on these two here, just these two centerpieces. If you get further, because you could really use the same wood planks material for this here too, right? I can go in here, grab these wood planks, right? And just, so I want you to essentially model and texture as much as you can the original house. You don't have to create any of these extra little asset pieces. We'll get into the next one. You don't have to make the roof, but I want you to do that. You have this cobblestone material that we created that you could make a chimney now for this. You could easily make that chimney. So really impress me. Push it as far as you can. And then what we'll do actually in the next one, so let's just show you really quick how I would unwrap this, is like that top face. You project from view, tab, object mode, Shift A or Alt H to unhide it, tab, edit mode, rotate R 90 degrees. So pretty quickly you could do that. Same thing here, grab these edges and do your best to sort of map, right? So if we planar project from view that, right? You could, here I'm gonna hit S to scale this and then R 90, R 90. G, if you line it up, something like that. You could also select both of the these three faces. Here's a trick. I selected that front and the three sides. I hit U to unwrap it. And what you see here is it laid that out for you. See that? So now I can select all three or hit L, R 90. And then you can just hit S to play with the scale so it matches it. You can see now you have those wood pieces that look like real wood. So I know this is a lot. I'm making it look easier than it is. I understand that. But I'm going to give you guys an entire week to finish this up. Just finish up texturing these individual pieces. Like I said, you don't have to do the, let me expand this out so you could see this. You don't have to do any of more of the objects unless you want to, and you don't have to do the thatch roof. So just kind of doing, so have fun with it if you can and you feel comfortable. We'll cover this later. You can do these pieces. It would be very similar to the way we created the window. Looks like I kind of shifted my window too. All right, that's it.